Welcome to the Twinkl Talks EYFS podcast. Working in the early years is busy, funny, messy, and exhausting. Join me, Shana, some of the Twinkl EYFS team, special guest speakers, and other early years practitioners as we talk honestly about our experiences. Whether you're listening for CPD, on your commute, or to help you relax, Twinkl EYFS will share everything you need to know about all things early years.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Twinkl Talks EYFS. My name's Katie.
And I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Georgia.
And Georgia is a brand new member of the Twinkl Early Years team. So welcome, Georgia. Please tell our lovely audience a little bit about yourself and your experience in early years.
Thank you. It's great to be a part of the Twinkl team. I've joined Twinkl after working in a private day nursery for over 10 years. I started off as an apprentice and I've worked up to be preschool room leader and deputy manager, and started Twinkl as a fun and exciting way to apply my skills in a different way.
Over 10 years experience is crazy to think about, isn't it?
It's a very long time. I've definitely worked my way up. I've learned a lot in that time as well.
And I imagine in 10 years, you've probably done almost every single role or career type that you can do in a nursery. What was your favourite role that you've done, just to be nosy?
Absolutely. I've loved it. I really enjoyed being in the kitchen. I did my level 2 food hygiene. I did some cooking. I've had Senko experience and I loved helping the children with additional needs. I enjoyed getting stuck in with management as well, paperwork and things like that. But my favourite thing is being in the room with the children.
It's always so rogue to me when people say that they enjoyed working in the kitchen. I used to find that the most stressful part. If I came into work and they were like, Katie, we need you to cover in the kitchen, that was a really bad day to me. I hated it. I don't know how people enjoy it.
I enjoy working in the kitchen. You can put on the radio, get stuck in, something a little bit different, breaks up the week.
I think it's just all the different foods. I couldn't really come to terms with it. I've got some I'm not a foodie person, and then touching foods that I don't like, I've always had issues with. And why do so many meals at nursery have baked beans in? Because that's one of my big issues in life is baked beans.
That's hilarious. Yeah, when there's lots of dietary requirements and things, that's when it gets a little bit tricky, but I enjoyed it. I like to do a bit of everything.
So in today's episode of the podcast, we are going to be answering some of our lovely listeners' queries and issues that they've been having around working in their settings recently. So the first question today is, I'm an unqualified member of staff who works 30 hours a week. I have 6 key children and need to do at least one observation for them a week. Is this allowed as I'm unqualified? What are your thoughts and opinions on that one, guys?
Well, when I worked in preschool, I always had the apprentice in my room, and obviously they were unqualified as they were training, and they used to have, I never used to like to give them more than 4 or 5, just because they had other responsibilities as well as that, like they'd be doing their own training as part of their apprenticeship. But it was always monitored by myself or someone else in the room. We always had to check them first before they were able to put them onto the tablet app that we used to use. But it was never like a requirement. Does that make sense? Like we didn't have to give them key children. It was more if they needed or wanted to have them as part of their apprenticeship to help them grow in those areas. But it wasn't something where they had to have key children to do observations.
I think that makes sense when you come at it from a training perspective. But if you're someone who is working 30 hours a week in preschool, toddlers, babies, whatever, but let's continue with the preschool example. So if you're working 30 hours a week in preschool every week, week in, week out, actually I don't think it's a strange expectation for you to have key children and to fulfill the responsibilities of a key person, because that is so much of the working week that you are spending with those children. So you should know them basically inside out, and you should be in a position where you're able to take observations. If you're unqualified, I would have expected someone in your setting, perhaps like your room leader or a more qualified member of staff, to sit with you and discuss this is what an observation could cover. These are the kind of things that you might want to be looking out for. Or maybe on a weekly basis, they would be like, this is what this child would need supporting with. But I do think it's a fair and realistic expectation to be doing regular observations if you're with the same children all the time. What are your thoughts, Georgia?
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes a lot of sense for apprentices to have key children. They're in the room a lot, so they will naturally develop those relationships with the children, and it's a big part of early years life and their training. Observations are really a key tool, especially if, like Charlotte was saying, you've got like a tablet where you can upload photos so parents can see what children are up to, especially when they're settling in. But I think the priority is always time with the children and experience that way, because Ofsted and places like that don't have any requirements in how many observations you do. So as I think the priority would be meaningful interactions with the children and learning the job that way, as opposed to having to get 6 done a week.
Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to say as well, is that you don't have to do observations by Ofsted. Your setting might say that they want X amount a week, and that's fine, that's their prerogative, but it's not like a legal or a specific requirement to be doing X, Y, Z observations. So making sure that they're still high quality if you are going to do them, but also, like you said, prioritizing what actually is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if they have a big wow moment or a baby takes a massive developmental leap, like definitely record that and observe that. But yeah, remember what's important for sure.
A lot of the apps now, as opposed to being used for observations, they've become more of a parent communication tool, I think. So it's like making sure that when they're asking you to upload an observation once a week, it's just making sure that that parent is having that extra bit of communication about what their child is often getting up to during the week, sort of like a comfort point. So it's important to understand whether it's for that, because you can get away is the wrong word, but you probably put a less specific detail in, as opposed to if you're doing like a big wow long observation once a week. So it just depends on what the expectations from the setting are.
So another question we have been asked on our social media is, I'm about to be a 2-year-old room leader in the next couple of weeks. Has anyone got any tips and advice, please? I want to do my best for the children and the staff.
I have to say, actually, out of all the different roles that I did at nursery, and I was a room leader for every age bracket at some point, being a toddler room leader is hard work, purely because you have to sort of learn to manage children in different sets of their routines. So, for example, you'll have younger toddlers that have just moved from babies, they're still having naps at lunchtime, they're very much more like into their routine, and what they're learning is a bit more sort of physical movement based. It's still communication and language, compared to older toddlers where you're starting to develop sort of more intricate skills, fine motor skills, counting, whatever you're looking at. But also that balance at lunchtime of the children that can and can't feed themselves, the ones that do go to sleep and don't go to sleep. That was the worst part of my day. The ones that are nappy trained, the ones that are in nappies and the ones that are toilet training. So I truly believe that the hardest thing in toddler room is knowing how to manage all of these different elements, which are kind of the same thing, but also quite different. Like nappy children, so much easier than toilet training children. And it's hard to get a balance in a room, I think, that works for everything. I don't know if I can ever say that I felt like I 100% successfully had that balance.
I remember when our preschool room was next to the toddler room. There was like a window in the middle. And I used to look through sometimes and just be like, praise these staff, because I don't know how they're doing it right now.
It's like a window into chaos.
Yeah, I just used to like look through the window and there'd be a million different things going on at once. And I did used to cover in toddlers sometimes, like at lunchtime and things like that. So, or when staff went home. So I did get to experience little snippets of what it's like to be in charge in a toddler room. And it's like you have to have eyes in the back of your head. You've got to be constantly moving around, looking at what's happening. But if you've got a great team around you and you're good at communication, you know what skills people are best at, where people thrive more, it's easier to get it to work really well, because you can sort of, if you as a room leader know how your staff are, what works best for them, what their strengths are, and you communicate and you're a good team, I think obviously there is chaos in toddler room, as you can't get away from the chaos, but
It's unavoidable.
it runs very, very well if you've got a good team behind you.
I think that's such a good point, because the difference between being a general practitioner in a room and room leader is just the level of management of the room, isn't it? Whereas before you were just responsible for yourself, as a room leader, actually, you've got to see and understand what's going on with each person in the room and make sure everyone's doing their job. But a piece of advice I would say is, just because something's been done a particular way for a long time doesn't mean that you have to continue it when you take over. But also, in the same breath, it's not just because you're now room leader, everything has to change. Do you know, normally when new staff come into a room, it's like, in my experience, people come in and they're like, I'm here now, we need to change the displays. And I'm like, but actually, if that display was successful and it was meeting its purpose, we don't need to do that. So it's being not afraid to make change, but actually making sure you take time to get used to it in that position and understanding why things do work and why things don't work, and making changes based on sort of like the data you're collecting around that.
Yeah, I'm the same as Charlotte. I was based in preschool for most of my early years experience, covered in toddlers every now and again, and I take my hat off to toddler staff because it's a lot. I'd say the key point is needing the right balance of being like organised but flexible as well. So you can have a plan, but you've always got to follow the children's routines and the children's needs, because you can never really know where the 2-year-olds are going to take you that day. Another question we've been asked on our social media is, I don't want to sound stupid here, but is 25 too old to do an apprenticeship? I've worked in a nursery as an unqualified member of staff, but at the time doing my level 3 wasn't the right time. But an apprenticeship opportunity has arose, and I don't know if they'll expect a 17-year-old rather than 25, nearly 26 to apply.
I actually think this is probably something that holds a lot of people back, because I won't lie, up until the last 2 years, my perception of apprentices were 16 to 18-year-olds who were either still in college or were doing their apprenticeship instead of college. But since Twinkl did a big study to understand more about the apprentice resources that were needed, we learned that actually apprentices genuinely come in all ages. 50% of people that replied to the study were 16 to 30, and the other 50% were 30 plus. So like, there actually isn't an age limit. Like, it's important to remember that if you're older, your first year of your apprenticeship, your setting may make you drop down to the minimum apprentice wage, and that's something you need to personally figure out into your life. Like, that's obviously a lot more financially achievable and sustainable at 16 to 18, depending on your circumstances, than if you're 25 plus and living in your own place, potentially with children. So you need to consider the financial aspect of it. But I would never bat an eyelid at working with someone who's 26, 27, 30 plus being an apprentice. Do you guys have much experience with working with, I'm going to air quote, older apprentices?
I was going to say 26, 25 is not old. Like, in my eyes,
That's
like,
all right.
that is still really young. Like, if someone came into my preschool setting and was like, I'm the new apprentice, and then I say I found out how old they were, that age would not, I'd be like, wow, that's great, like, fantastic. Because a lot of people, I think when you're young and you're 17, 18, you are expected to know what you want to do in life, and I don't think a lot of people do. So a lot of people might start something at college or go to uni and do something and then realise, this is not what I want to do. This is not, I want to work with children instead. And then they might go into childcare in their late 20s, 30s, because whatever they decided to do earlier on in life, they just didn't enjoy it. So I don't think age matters at all in any aspect of life. If you want to go for something when you're 50 years old, then go for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Lots of people I've worked with have been coming into early years since having their own children. So sort of 25, 26 is the right sort of age group for that. They've had children, they've loved it, or it works around their children and their routine a bit more. I think it's never too late to go for it and follow what you want to do. If you want to expand on your career, I think that's a perfect time to do it. And then working towards being qualified will open up so many other doors in the future as well.
I also think it's great that before you were able to reflect and understand that it wasn't the right time for you to do your level 3, because I think we take on responsibilities that we just don't appreciate are actually too much for us at the time. So if you're now in a position where you think it is a good time, you've got the capacity, you've got the ability, you've got the time to do it, then get it done. Like the others have said, it's only going to open up more career opportunities for you moving forward. And you're really not too old at 25 or 26. Although you would now be in the, oh no, was it over 35 or over 25 category on X Factor when we were all younger? that made you
Yeah,
like
over
look at a certain
25.
age person and be like, wow, grandma.
I know, and being 32 this year makes me feel like an ancient, like, mummy or something.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Twinkl Talks EYFS. As always, if you've got any questions of your own or you'd like to talk about an episode of the podcast, you can find us on a multitude of social media channels. If it exists, we're probably on it, including Facebook, lots of Facebook groups, X, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok. We're probably on there somewhere. But in the meantime, we'll speak to you again in a few weeks. Bye.
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 So that's it for today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you would like to join in or would like to know more, then come and find us on our social media sites. We have a Facebook page, Facebook groups, an Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube. All the links of where to find us will be in our podcast description. Come and join the conversation. And whatever you're doing today, I hope you have a great day.